It's actually a lot easier to get things done in capitalism if you don't care about people. Is the easy route worth it?
Leading with integrity in a world that doesn't always reward it. The hard calls, the ones that cost you, the ones you make when no one is watching. Today's guest is Camille Irving, raised in Baltimore, educated at Xavier University and Northwestern's Kellogg School of Management. She built brands at Procter Gamble, then spent 8 years at Uber as Vice President and General Manager of U.S. and Canada Mobility Operations, running the largest P&L in the rideshare business. But the through line of her career was never the logos on the resume. It's a simple conviction. How you lead matters as much as what you achieve. She's in conversation with your host, Frederick Russell, Executive Leadership Coach and Principal of the True North Leadership Group. No preamble, no warm-up. We're joining them already in the thick of it, mid-conversation, as Frederick asks how her values hold up under pressure. This is the True North Leadership Podcast.
Taking off what you said a little earlier, how has that been a vanguard in the pressure situations not to compromise your values?
It's tough. It's hard. I think people, especially people of faith, people like us who have a foundation that is grounded in, a particular values context, sort of have this belief that things will work out, right? That we will be protected, that we will be taken care of, even when the manifestation in real time is not seeing that. However, in this current environment, in this world today, there is a mismatch between doing the right thing and succeeding. Said differently, the non-ethical leaders are succeeding right now in many, many contexts. There are lots of examples, and that's why this conversation is so important. And I have empathy for anyone who takes a look and says, hey, my incentive structure is telling me that not acting ethically is going to give me a better outcome. So what then is the value of ethics to begin with?
Well said. It also forces one or compels one to be transparent.
Sure.
And for you, what is the difference between being transparent and strategically vague?
Oh, yeah. Oh, my goodness. This is great. So I am not good at strategic vague. I'm not. I think it's actually one of my best leadership traits and one that can be risky in this environment. I only know how to be authentic and transparent because I don't know how to metabolize the energy that is required to be not transparent. You know what I mean? Like the most efficient use of my energy is to keep it real. Now, for me, keeping it real as a leader, when there are risks involved, when there are stakes involved, might mean I tell my team, this is a thing that I cannot share with you. You know what I mean? Like if someone asks me, I'm going to pull up a hypothetical example. Will there be layoffs? If I know the answer to that question, but I'm not authorized to share it, I think some leaders might obfuscate the question. They might say, hey, this is something that's still in consideration. We're having conversations about it, etc. My answer will be, I'm not able to share that right now. Period. And I think there's a risk there, right? So the risk is now people have to hold uncertainty. I'm transferring my discomfort with ambiguity onto my team because they're holding uncertainty. But what's also true is I cultivate trust over time. And so if I tell my team I'm not able to share that right now, but trust me, because I have built that trust over time, then we have that contract. And I think that they are better able and more equipped to handle that uncertainty, that ambiguity, because they have trust in me as a leader.
So does that, or can that trigger in them almost, what I'm asking you have just affirmed it, by saying, I cannot tell you right now. How has that worked with your teams? Because I think you set it up by saying, because you built that type of relationship.
Right.
This trust
Yeah.
that's inherent, they can take you at your word with that
Yeah.
and run with it. But what would you tell a leader who has not built the trust yet?
Okay. If your constraint is that you do not want to lie, with something like a people-related decision, a career-related decision, there's other considerations too. Are you going to distract people so that they're not able to get their work done? Are you going to create an environment where people are not trusting each other? And I think all of those are really important considerations. I start with, and this again, courage and faith. I start with people are going to best act when they have the information they need to act. And it is selfish for me to withhold information from people for the sake of keeping them focused. You know what I mean? And so in some ways, like my approach to leadership might be on hard mode because it's easier to keep people in the dark and focused. So they're working, etc. But what I would advise a leader is that it is better in the long run to give the transparency and then give people a reason why, even in the midst of this information, they can stay focused.
Wow.
That's not easy. Like that's the hard way to do it, but it's the way that keeps me grounded in my values.
That's powerful. That requires of you to be accountable.
Yeah.
And sometimes there are leaders who are driven to hold others accountable, but they resist it themselves. How have you navigated that? And what is the wisdom that you can share about how you've navigated it and what you've seen in others around you?
As I've grown in my career over the years, different experiences, I would say like I told you, I was implanted with all these values. So I was operating like everybody was in general trying to tell the truth. But I've learned over time that people aren't. And you said, sometimes leaders are not accountable. Sometimes leaders don't always have integrity. And what I have figured out is that it's because sometimes it's really efficient to not have that integrity. And so there's lots of leaders who are just operating and they say, here is the goal that I've been given by my leadership, by my shareholders, what have you. I'm going to move in the direction of that goal. Everything else is secondary. And when you have that perspective, then I think for them, it feels like, okay, I have integrity because I am following my singular goal. And what can come with that is, a tolerance for harm that I've observed. And I think that's where I feel a bit different than some leaders because I'm not able to be so singular on one thing that I can ignore harm that's happening over here. It's just not possible. That's why I say like doing it on hard mode, doing the extra work to both maintain values and deliver goals has to be worth it. And so what I would advise people is to start by just recognizing that truth. It's actually a lot easier to get things done in capitalism if you don't care about people. And you don't care about values. But but then I would challenge someone and say, is the easy route worth it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I feel, and you are giving voice to that, that every leader must have accountability partners. People around you who can tell you the truth.
Sure.
Tell you when you're right, tell you when you're wrong. And no one can ever force it on you. You have to choose to have that level of accountability. And this is not a job for groupies and fans in the stands, because you need people who love you, but they're not impressed by you. And if you are trying to navigate this thing of leadership on your own, where you believe that the competence is there and that I can do this by myself, that's a recipe to crash and burn at some point. Have you in your career deliberately, whether you did it formally or not with this language, brought people close up around you who can tell you the truth about you when it comes to leadership?
Oh, yes and no. So I say yes because I do have, a board of directors, many peers, some folks who have more experience than me. And also I always keep junior people around me, people who are younger, who haven't had as many experiences. And I use them as sounding boards. And I rely on that group to give me a sense of whether or not I'm doing the right thing. I also think that I don't have enough. So I think even I mentioned earlier that I'm in this constant process to try and perfect courage and perfect faith. And I think what I sense is I want more. I want even more trusted advisors, even more people who can shine a mirror to me, and ask me to evaluate myself.
Which isn't always easy. As much as theoretically we can talk about introspection, sometimes it's unnerving to be introspective. But how does that play out when it's not only encouraging you to be introspective, but they're giving a perspective that may not be as complimentary and as flattering as you thought, where you are hearing some things that are unpleasant about your leadership? The easy thing will be to retaliate, become vindictive. And the other is to receive it and process it. Have you ever dealt with both? And if so, how did you handle it?
I find it similar to the discomfort I experience when I'm exercising, right? I want my muscles to grow bigger. I want my heart to metabolize oxygen faster. I have to put them under stress in order for that to happen. In the same way, I want to be a better, more effective leader. I want to create value more. I want people to trust me. Those behaviors are not just going to like be implanted in my mind from, a download in my sleep. As much as I would love that to be true. Yep. No, I developed those by doing it wrong, having someone who can reflect that incorrect behavior, having the humility to receive that feedback, having the cleverness to think about how I might change it, and then implementing a new practice and doing that over and over and over again. And I am grateful for it. I don't always get it right. I also see leaders who at some point stop doing that, either because they're under a lot of pressure or because they've decided that they have made it, and it precedes a crash and burn.
I want to pivot and talk a bit, or segue, to talk a bit about this thing of being truthful in one's leadership. Today, we're in a moment where lying has become acceptable. We no longer are at an epidemic stage. We're at a pandemic stage. And when leaders lie, it is usually to cover themselves in the moment. They get past a particular situation to a better day, where they can really begin to deal with some things. But is there ever a situation in your perspective where it is justifiable to lie?
Justified is such a hard word because I think every action is about the consequence, the multiple layers of consequence, both the outcome that will come from that in the physical world, but also the internal consequence. And lying, and I'm going to assume that like lying for most people is a pretty universal value. Like most people would agree that lying is something that is anti-value. I think that lies compound over time. So when you tell a lie, you experience, I think, hopefully a bit of guilt, a bit of remorse, and that sits. And so then the next lie adds to that weight. The next lie adds to that weight. So that's the consequence of the lie. So even if in the physical world, okay, this lie helped me get past this moment. This lie helped me keep this employee happy, close this sales deal. It helped get this investor on board. So the physical world is like growing and growing in the benefits of that lie. But in the internal world, there's this weight that is growing. I believe that eventually, like, it's going to come to roost. So, like, I don't ever want to lie as a leader. I don't ever want to lie. But a lie I told often was, "You're doing great." You know what I mean? To an employee in the context of feedback. That's a disservice to them. But man, did it get me past this situation? Did it help me refocus my attention? I think. And then the question of like, what is a lie versus what is a interpretation of facts, right, is the most important question, because when you're talking to regulators or when you're talking to regulators and we're interpreting laws, there's the element of like, we are interpreting laws. We are even interpreting data. So justified, hard question because there's levels.
So Camille, one of the things that a leader has to have is credibility. And one of the ways to lose that quickly is when people discover that you're a liar as the leader. Because at the end of the day, all a leader has is their credibility. How important is that? And how have you been able to maintain your credibility because of this decision to be transparent and honest? And have you ever had a part two of this, a moment when you wish you had done it differently?
Oh, so good. I'm going to take this in two parts. First, I'm going to keep it real. I actually think that there are plenty of leaders who are getting a lot done without credibility, especially today. Because if you don't have credibility, what you need is leverage. If people don't trust you, but they're afraid of you, they will still act in this environment, particularly when you could make decisions that threaten their livelihood, etc. I am not able to function that way. So I have to start with credibility. You know, even in the presence of leverage, my particular value stack won't let me not operate with credibility. So, okay. So I just want to start there and say it's at this point in this environment, in this economy we live in the short term, it is a choice. Because a liar can just build up a lot of leverage. I think we see that in the highest levels of government right now. But for me, you asked me, like, have I ever had a time when I got it wrong and I had to work it back? Yeah, I would say I don't know that I've experienced that at the like organizational level, but in individual relationships, 100%, where I have, not given somebody the feedback that they wanted, not delivered something on time and made up a story about why it wasn't delivered on time. Or, if I didn't straight up lie, sort of like, last minute shifting of responsibilities, not been accountable. And that has damaged a relationship. And I have some relationships that won't recover from that. And it made me less effective. I think it made me less effective as a leader because, it's now harder to get to influence that person and to get them on board with my things. And it causes me then to have to use leverage. And I just think that is a not good way to have to operate. You know what I'm saying? Like, you're in an organization, you're working with a cross-functional partner or something, and the only way you can get them to align to your objective is to threaten that you'll remove the budget. Like, I can't believe that is a useful, effective, good way of operating as a leader.
I concur with that all the way. Another of the downsides to that is that one of the things that leaders do, either intentionally or unintentionally, is they shape the culture of their team or their organization. And when the leader begins to model something, it sends a not so subtle message that this is okay in this environment. And when a leader doesn't have a high integrity, you begin to see that replicated throughout the organization, which ends up at some point that organization is sustainability. It's not going to be there. You begin to feel the cracks in the organization. If you're not careful as a leader, you can get very transactional as how you deal with your people, where they become pawns on the chessboard. But one of the dangerous parts of being a leader that lies where your integrity is in question is that you begin to believe that stuff yourself.
Yes.
And so what is the most dangerous lie that a leader can tell themselves?
Oh, that is so good. The most dangerous lie that a leader can tell themselves: I know it all.
What is the impact of that?
I know it all is a immediate arrestor of that growth mindset that I just required. I know it all stops you from receiving or even soliciting feedback from others, so that when you might be off track, you're not open to receive it. And then the result of that is you start moving quickly in the direction of off track, and then things go poorly. I know it all gives you permission to lie because you believe that you know the answer on the other end of that, and that answer is what is going to, like, do whatever path you take is a take towards your goal. And if you know it all, then you're willing to make those sacrifices. Yeah, I'm going to repeat that. Like, I know it all forces a leader or gives a leader permission to redefine the ethical compass of themselves and the organization. I think I know it all is really, really dangerous.
Well, that's well said. Let me take it a little deeper, one more level down.
Sure.
A much more existential question. This is more your observations of what you see can happen. And that is when what happens to a leader's soul, the essence of themselves, when they repeatedly choose image over truth.
Wow. Oh my gosh, when you choose image over truth. Okay, let me start with why choose image at all. And for there will be people listening to this podcast who have not had the experience of being in a high stakes leadership environment in a company. And I would start with just being very honest that your image and reputation truly do matter. Like, they matter to the teams that you're leading, and they matter to your peers, and they matter to leadership. And so it's like your image is like your bank account. You know what I mean? And so having a good, clean image means that you have a lot of chips that you can play with, a lot of reputational capital that you can wield in order to succeed. So I'm starting with that grounding because I think that it's really easy to trifle with the idea that, image doesn't matter, ego doesn't matter. And I think we want to, especially people of faith, be low ego, no ego people. And I haven't figured out how to do that in an environment where your ability to be effective really does hinge on what people think of you. So going back to your question, when you choose your image.
I love how you just said that. Keep going, but I love how you just said that and framed that.
Yeah. When you choose your image over telling the truth or making the right decision, I think actually the first thing it does is you're actually devaluing your image. You're devaluing your political capital. Like, you are saying my bank account doesn't have enough coins in it for me to tell the truth today. And I want to believe that if you have cultivated that image, cultivated that reputation, and part of that personal brand is integrity, is authenticity, then you are able to say, okay, I'm going to spend some coins today in order to be able to act consistently with my values. So that's the first thing. Now, where you see it show up is when someone's tank really is depleted, right? Like, my image is in trouble. My reputation is in trouble. Or at least I perceive that it is. And I think that's one of the hardest places that a leader can be. Like, truly, I think those are the sleepless nights. And those are the days when, like, you don't even know if you can trust yourself because you feel like you're depleted. And going back to this whole practice of ethical leadership being a process of perfecting courage and perfecting faith, I think in that moment it's most important, more important than anything, to go back to those core faith and courage to say, like, I am concerned that my reputational bank is running low and that I don't have enough coins to afford to tell the truth. But I'm going to have faith and I'm going to have courage to say, I'm telling the truth today. And in doing that, I will, even if I temporarily have to experience some hurt, I will ultimately start to build my bank again.
What is the one ethical line that you decided long ago that you would never cross, This is an irreducible minimums question. When you push it all to the side,
Yeah.
what is the one ethical line that you have already predetermined that you would never cross?
Oh, such a good question. I mean, there's a few. I'm gonna start with ones that probably feel easy. Like I'm not gonna kill anyone with my own hands, or with, if I put this in the context of a company, like if I'm, yeah, no, if I'm running, is yeah, because it's actually not a crazy question, right? Like if I were the CEO of a manufacturing firm and I knew there was a risk that a machine could do bodily injury to one of my employees, I'm turning the machine off. Full stop. And I would just have to face whatever consequences are happening in my business. So yeah, actually that's not a crazy one to contend with, because it is the question that leaders will have to come up with, because we live in a world. So yeah, I'm not going to kill anyone. I think another is, I am not going to put my family in danger. Yeah. Yeah, I'm not going to put my family in danger. I think for me, how that manifests is I would be extremely hesitant to ever run for public office in today's world, because I would fear that I could, bring harm to my family. So I'll start there.
Wow. I concur with those. I will embrace those things too as well. When your leadership seasons are over and people do a retrospective look back over that long career, what do you want people to say about your character?
About my character. I would want people to say that they saw me lifelong in this cycle of growth, that I always solicited feedback, listened to people, wanted people to tell me the hard things, received them, processed them, remained accountable for when I was wrong, and then put in the effort to grow. And if people who have the chance to see my career over the long haul can say with confidence that they saw that cycle, I will feel so satisfied and so blessed.
What did you decide early on? And how did you decide early on what ladder you would lean, or what wall you would lean your career ladder on, to make sure on reaching the top, you don't discover it's on the wrong wall?
I'm still answering that question. I'm gonna be honest. And I've had the immense privilege of having a career trajectory that went faster than my age. Like I'm fairly young right now. I'm 40 years old. I've been an executive. I am going to be a CEO. And one of the questions that I grapple with is this one, right? I know that there is not a absolute success. I don't think people know that. I think that there's a lot of folks who are just like in a race, racing toward an endpoint that they believe is there. And at some point, many people discover that, like, first of all, the race has no end because it's a bit constructed. And secondly, to your point, you can race to the top only to discover that the ladder is against the wrong wall. So I'm at a point in my career right now, today, where I am asking God, I am talking to my family and my board, trying to figure out what's the wall that I want to lean on. Now, I know what foundation, I know what the floor is, you know what I mean? And that foundation is my faith and my values and my loved ones. But like, what, corporate structure, industry structure, group of consumers, mission I want to align myself with is work in progress.
On this final question, Camille, I've heard you mention several times throughout, you have alluded to your faith that has guided you. Unpack that a bit more. How has your faith informed the way that you've led, especially in the area of ethics?
my faith journey started as a child. I was raised in a Black Baptist church. I accepted Jesus Christ as my Savior when I was 8 years old. And the teachings of Christ and the teaching of the Bible became the foundation for everything else that I've built on top of it, and how I lead and how I make decisions. But I'll give you an example from that foundation. In the Bible, my favorite verse or favorite chapter is Matthew 6, and this is in Jesus' Sermon on the Mount. And Matthew 6, if you ever get a chance to read it, boils down to this pretty simple concept that, as I interpret it, which is do not worry. And do not worry is how I have navigated all of the experiences I've had in life that have just been unexpected, random, where I had uncertainty. I was living in New Orleans when Hurricane Katrina happened, which disrupted my life in unimaginable ways. Even before then, September 11th changed the paradigm of what we understood safety to be. And I was a sophomore in high school living in Baltimore City, very close in proximity to Washington, D.C. We all experienced the pandemic, which turned our world around. And so I, as a leader, have this comfort and this peace with pivoting and with uncertainty because I'm grounded in my faith, and specifically this concept that Christ talks about in Matthew 6, which is do not worry.
Camille Irving, thank you for being here today to do this podcast. You're so appreciated.
Thank you, Freddie Russell. It is a privilege to be here. I'm so grateful that you've taken on this mission of talking about ethical leadership. It's not popular right now, but we can change that. And I'm happy to be a part of it.
Great. Thank you.